supply chain's hard. Transportation's hard. It's 24/7. It is hard. So I think it's really important to build a network. Surround yourself with people who understand what you're trying to accomplish, who can potentially help you accomplish that. But you also have to be willing to give back. And you can't wait to network until you actually need it. You have to be much more intentional about it.
Welcome to Supply Chain Champions, the show brought to you by Project 44, where we're talking to the people who make supply chains work. Hello and welcome to another episode of Supply Chain Champions. I'm your host, Eric Fullerton, and I'm excited to welcome Michelle Livingstone today. Michelle is a longtime industry leader and supply chain executive. Michelle, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much for inviting me. I'm so excited to spend some time with you today.
Awesome. So you have had a really expansive career in transportation and supply chain. You've worked in retail, direct-to-consumer, consumer products, some companies like Kraft Foods, JCPenney, Home Depot. You've opened your own consulting practice. You're also a professor at the University of Denver in an adjunct fashion. And I guess I'm curious, the through line through all of these things that you do and focus on, is there a motto or is there an ethos that you've kind of taken to all of these different things throughout your career?
That's a really interesting question. I would say that it is along the lines of let's get stuff done. There's so much to do and let's just do it. Let's just make it happen. And that for me is kind of my motto. Let's get her done, as they say.
Perfect. I love it. I mean, you have to execute. It's hard to talk strategy if you can't manage the execution part. So no matter where you are and what you're doing, got to get stuff done. I like
That's
it.
Right.
Whether you'd admit it or not, you're perceived, at least your reputation is at being a bit of a trailblazer really in supply chain leadership. And you've done so much work in the women's side of this as well. But I'm always curious, how did you get into transportation, logistics, and supply chain? Was there something that inspired you to step into the field, or tell me a little bit of that story?
Oh, absolutely. I'm excited to share that my dad was in trucking for the majority of my life and the majority of his life. And it is amazing how much I learned at the dinner table as he was talking about his day. And I might have been rolling my eyes, which I'm pretty sure I was, about, yet another story about, the driver did this or we lost this freight or whatever. But I may have looked like I wasn't paying attention. But when I got to Indiana University, I knew I wanted to be a business major, and I went down the accounting and marketing and all that route. And frankly, it's all fine, but it didn't really make me very excited. And then I learned that there was a concentration in transportation. So I took the obligatory Transportation 101 class, and voila, turned out I actually had picked up a few things along the way, and the rest was history. The fact that there were only, 32 students in that program at the time, and only 6 were women also seemed like a good opportunity to get engaged. And I've never looked back. I really have loved being in the industry.
Yeah. So when you look throughout your career, can you look back at a moment, or maybe it's a set of experiences that kind of was a seminal moment for you, where you can look back and say, hey, that's part of the reason why I am, where I am today?
I don't know that there was any one particular moment. And I will also say that I tend to focus on the here and now and not so much in the past. But I love the fact that the industry is fast paced and that, it's solving hard problems with very smart people and all of that. And I just knew that I was in the right place. I just knew it. And truly, it's such a great field to be in, and I've loved every minute of it. So I feel good about my decision that I made, and I certainly want to encourage others to follow suit.
Yeah. So I think we can talk about that a little bit as well, because you obviously have very demanding full-time jobs throughout your career, but you've also done a lot of work with women in supply chain, Women's Link, Velvet Hammers. You were on the advisory board of Awesome, which is a leadership community dedicated to achieving women's excellence in supply chain. So I guess the question is, how did you make the decision to prioritize that part of professional business practice?
Yeah, you know what? I think it's really important to attract and retain the very best talent in the industry. And I feel that even today, there are underrepresented populations in supply chain. And I really felt like as I made my way up the ladder that I had to give back. And Gail Evans, who was a professor at Georgia Tech teaching women's leadership after she had a very successful career at CNN, used to talk about if you're not helping another person come up the ladder as you're going up, then you really have failed. And so I probably learned that lesson a little too late. So it became important to work with larger groups of people and make sure that I helped grow and develop them and share my life lessons to the best of my ability. And hopefully something resonates. And hopefully that will continue to help attract and retain, particularly women in the industry.
Yeah, awesome. I want to shift a little bit, kind of talking about maybe a little bit more the current state of the industry and where we're at and get some of your perspectives there. So, I think that we've seen over the past couple of years, post-COVID times, there's an industry focus, maybe a little obsession on the concept and idea of resilience. And I know you have a kind of an interesting thinking here around the concept of control and controlling what you can control and the relationship between that and building a resilient supply chain. Can you share a little bit of that perspective?
Yes, absolutely. And you're right. I learned throughout the years that the more I could control, the better my end result would be. And becoming a little less reliant on others certainly puts things in a better position, for success. But there are some things that are just better done internally and where you can completely control it. So I always say I'm not a control freak. I do like to be in control though, and being able to do more within the group and rely more on our own internal resources, I think work to our favor in a lot of cases.
Yeah. Another thing that you've focused on in your career is this concept of a shipper of choice. And I know that when you were at Home Depot, this is a priority for the transportation and supply chain org. Maybe it's not thought of as much, or it's certainly probably not prioritized as much as it should when you think about the importance of the relationship between shippers and carriers. Why prioritize that? Why focus on that? And maybe why is it important to create that shipper of choice mentality as a shipper?
I still am very passionate about that. And transportation is cyclical. Some years it's a shipper's market, some years it's a carrier's market. And you have to have a strategy that's going to work in both markets. And the shipper of choice has withstood the test of time. And if you align yourself with the right people, you have common shared goals on what you're trying to accomplish and how you want to go about doing it, then you eliminate a lot of the pendulum swings that can get you in trouble. And I'll tell you right now, it's been a shipper's market for the past few years. I know you're well aware that truckload carriers have suffered a bit. And some shippers are going to find themselves, I'm afraid, in not the best spot here as the market is starting to turn. And the market always turns. What goes around comes around. And I think carriers are going to migrate to the shippers that stuck with them during the tough times. They'll be the first to get the capacity. They'll be first to get the best people on their account. They'll be first to get the benefit of new services and all that. And the shippers who treated the relationship more transactional, I think, are going to find themselves having to do a bit of a scramble there to get what they need. And a lot of that, in my opinion, can be avoided by implementing a strategy like shipper of choice. And, it's just really about collaborating. You identify the carriers and service providers that are most important, and then you work with that group first, and then you blend in others as you need to help supplement.
Yeah, absolutely. One other topic I do want to get your thoughts on, because I did my research, Michelle. I've heard you talk about some of these big topics before, and sustainability is something where there's a lot of conversation about. There's not a ton of, I would say, money necessarily put behind a lot of those things. There's a lot of action or an increasing amount of action. There's a little bit of a slow burn there in terms of putting your money where your mouth is and making some claims. And all of a sudden, 2030 is looking really close. But I think you've also spoken about the actual connection between sustainability and cost savings, things that people, I think, perceive as being at odds, but they're actually not in many ways. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. Well, first of all, sustainability for Home Depot, I'll just talk about my Home Depot days because I was very engaged with sustainability there, was important because it's important to our customers. And that was really driving the primary focal point was, hey, if this is important to our customers, we need to step up and make sure that we are offering the best products and doing everything we can internally in our decision making to make sure that we're a sustainable company. And I do have many examples of where being sustainable actually saved money. So if you use an optimization tool to make sure that you're routing your trucks in the most efficient manner, it's great because it reduces greenhouse emissions and it saves money because you're operating more efficiently than you were before. And that's just one of many examples of why sustainability can save money. Now, of course, there could be some investments in equipment, some other things along the way too. But there are so many things that both shippers and carriers can do to be more sustainable that actually do save money. I'm a believer.
Yeah, it's an important part. And I think that is probably what it's going to take in order to start to see more momentum on some of these things and areas, especially when you look at, North America and things like that. You've had this, very successful career in logistics and transportation and supply chain. You probably could have done a lot of things. You could have probably gone to a new org. You could have, brought in many, many different types of leadership roles. And instead, you started your consultancy, which I think, makes sense. And then also you shifted into teaching at the University of Denver. So I keep asking you why, but I do think it's an important kind of question, like why prioritize that?
Right. Well, first of all, I would say that you have to know when it's time to go. And then I left Home Depot because I felt like I was blocking a slot. And I had worked hard to develop team members. And, you go through a couple cycles of finally getting to ready now candidates. And you're like, wow, I could hang in here because I was having fun. I mean, I loved what I did, loved the team, loved the company, loved everything about it. But I'm going to block a spot and didn't want to do that. And I also wanted to serve on boards. So I do have the good fortune of serving on the board of Werner Enterprises and Mastery Logistics, and I'm on the advisory board of the Patient Group. So for me, that kept me in the industry and still, remaining relevant and still doing the things that I love. But the teaching, actually, I've always had a passion for. And I learned at a pretty young age that I was not going to live the lifestyle I would like to become accustomed to on a teacher's salary, which is such a sad statement, but it was true. But now, I have an opportunity to really give back. And the Transportation and Supply Chain Institute at the University of Denver is phenomenal because everybody that is in the master's program is actually in the industry. So it's been so fun to continue to connect and help these future leaders grow and develop in their career. And it's truly been fulfilling. So it's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. I'm gonna embarrass you a little bit here because I did hear about Michelleisms at Home Depot. And I heard about a plaque. It's a testament to your leadership style that you had kind of these consistent themes that you were driving into the team. But if you could give me one, maybe two classic Michelle-isms from your time there, I would really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate that research and opportunity. Unfortunately, I had so many that it filled the entire plaque, which is probably meaning that I need to be a little more creative in how I say things. But one of them is deliver good news fast and bad news faster. And I think as a mantra within supply chain and transportation, that is key. For me, that one was really important. There are 9,000 ways to deliver a message. Maybe you'd like to pick one of the other 8,999 ways to say that. So I think communication is really important. How you deliver the message makes a huge difference on how it's received. And so that was one of them. And I have probably too many to even count.
That's great. I'm very happy that I asked and that you played along. So I appreciate that. So before we go into the kind of like quick hits for us to close the episode, I did want to talk to you a little bit about advice, whether it's for young professionals, all young professionals, for women getting into supply chain or looking for those types of leadership roles. Obviously, this is an area you're passionate about. What would you say if someone asked you for advice?
Yes. Well, I mentioned that I am very passionate about attracting and retaining the very best talent in the industry. And it's hard. Supply chain is hard. Transportation is hard. It's 24/7. It is hard. So I think it's really important to build a network. And I know a lot of folks have a negative connotation with networking. And it's like, oh, that's not me. And I think what they're missing is that it's not being disingenuous. It's really being smart to surround yourself with people who understand what you're trying to accomplish, who can potentially help you accomplish that. But you also have to be willing to give back. You can't just take. You have to be able to also give and help others when they need it. I'm very big on networking, and I encourage those that are particularly new in their career to network internally as well as externally. And you can't wait to network until you actually need it. You have to be much more intentional about it. But I think it's a really important thing for folks, particularly new in their career, to get started on. And then hopefully, I've been very fortunate. I have people in my network that I've known for decades at this point in time. And, it's wonderful to be able to fall back on that when you need to.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that was great. Let's close with our quick hits here. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions and, try to keep it to maybe one. It doesn't have to be exactly one sentence, but maybe like one thought. First, what is one thing that you wish everyone who worked in supply chain knew and the industry would be better for it?
I wish everyone knew that supply chain is a microcosm of business in general. We need supply chain IT. We need supply chain HR. We need supply chain finance. It's not just operations, but all of the other disciplines are in supply chain, and that makes it a great place to work.
That was a great answer. What is one trait that all of the best supply chain professionals seem to have?
It probably is resilience. You have to be willing to hang in there and work through hard problems, and you can't just walk away. Resilience.
Absolutely. I want to give you an opportunity to officially retire one overused buzzword in supply chain. If you had that chance, what would it be?
Unprecedented times. I don't know if you recall 2018, every carrier came in and they started the conversation about needing a rate increase during these unprecedented times. I had a null sign on my whiteboard. No unprecedented times.
If it's all an unprecedented time, then it's not an unprecedented.
That is correct.
So I have another question around kind of those principles. It's aligned with the motto, but a little bit different, right? So, you've led supply chain operations at some of the largest companies in the world. When you think about leadership principles, what's something that stayed very consistent across those different industries?
I would say what has stayed consistent across every company is treat your people right. Bernie Marcus, one of the co-founders of the Home Depot, I think said it best. If you treat your associates well, they'll take care of your customers and the rest will take care of itself. And I have found that treating the team right is absolutely the key to success.
Yeah, absolutely. No matter how much technology there is, it's still a people business at its very core.
Absolutely. And by the way, not only treating your associates right, but treating your business partners right too.
Cool. So let's talk a little bit about supply chain trends. The industry is in certainly an interesting space right now. There's a lot going on. There's a lot out there. It can be a little bit hard to parse through. So love your perspective. One supply chain trend that is overrated and why, and then maybe one that's underrated and why.
Yeah, you know what? I think the technology is phenomenal. The investment that folks are making, not just in AI, but in all forms of technology, data analytics, all that is great. Love that. The one thing that I was hoping would be further along, and I know this is a bit controversial, but autonomous trucking. Obviously, we need to adjust the infrastructure, but I just feel like there's a lot of value in terms of autonomous trucking. And not that, we love drivers, absolutely love drivers, but I think there's value in terms of trying to figure out how we can do better with the technology that exists. And part of that's just getting public sentiment to come along with us. But part of that's also infrastructure. I don't know that there's anything overrated that comes to mind at the moment.
Okay. Last one of our quick hits. We're looking for hot takes. Michelle, what is your hot take on the supply chain industry today?
I am so optimistic for the future. And I feel that the industry is where you should be. And I really feel that the hot take is come join the industry and enjoy all that's happening and be a leader and make things even better going forward.
Awesome. Michelle, thank you so much for taking some time to share your expertise, your perspective. I know it's really valuable. You've done some amazing work in the industry and it's only continuing. So thank you very much for spending some time with us.
Oh, Eric, thank you so much for including me. I really appreciate it. And you're a fun interviewer.
Thank you for listening to Supply Chain Champions. To get connected and learn more, visit project44.com and click the link in the comments to subscribe to Project 44's newsletter. Tune in get smart, and move forward.